We opened the show speaking about the TV conglomerate, the local TV conglomerate
Yeah,
Nexstar, making this call on Jimmy Kimmel, right, as almost like a tribute to the mafia don
right.
president, a show of faith. And in turn, basically, they are rewarding them by reportedly changing, obliterating like FCC anti-monopoly guidelines to allow for this merger with their biggest rival, and then it
Yeah.
would comprise a monopolistic takeover of 80% of local TV stations.
I mean, it just is so clear what's happening here, which is, there is, I mean, a big premise of our podcast is there is no line between legitimate and illegitimate business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this murk. And if we look at, the kind of countries that mafias thrive best in are sort of partial democracies. They're not full-on autocracies. They're not very healthy, clean democracies. They're ones with a mix of those characteristics. And so I think we're in one of those. It sure seems like, because the awarding of government contracts and of the goodies to a favored few. This is just a much larger version of that concrete club in New York I was talking about, where it's just 8 concrete contractors. That's who you have to buy from. Those are the only guys you can buy from. And by the way, you're going to pay an inflated cost for low quality stuff, but you have no other choice.
And that, I mean, it also incentivize, this monopoly stuff, and like taking his hands off the wheel of anti-monopoly law is also too about consolidating power in the hands of people that are nice to him and suck up to him.
Well,
so it's the only show in town.
Who's getting TikTok, right? It is David Sachs, Mark Andreessen. Like, I mean, these are double dealing guys who are just his cronies. This is just the modern day version of, Mayor Daley steering all the insurance business in the city to his son's firms. This is, well, and we could talk about Don Jr. and Eric, I mean, playing an important role in this too.
We didn't even get to the cryptocurrency piece of this racket.
Right. I mean, again, literally, it reminds me of that scam from Mayor Daley or Senator Al D'Amato of New York. All business would go through his brother. Like, again, this is a common tactic in mob-corrupted politicians. But now we're just doing it with whoever wants to dump money in the coffers of the Trump family. In this case, I think the United Arab Emirates, there was that great story in the New York Times about $2 billion in cryptocurrency purchases going straight to these Trump companies in exchange for these AI chips. I mean, that's just as clear a pay to play as you could find,
How do you view the kind of the tech mafioso types, and comparing that to the golden age of the mafia when they were at their heights?
A lot less cool. No.
Yeah, they're not going to be making movies or shows like The Sopranos.
Way less
about these
fashionable.
guys. Yeah, although they are making The Social Network too, and I saw Ike Barinholtz is, I believe, playing Elon Musk. I think that was him. Maybe not, and it's going to work. I think he kind of looks and sounds like him. But
no, that's great casting.
Yeah.
Listen, in all seriousness, at least the mafia would tip a lot when they go out. I don't think these guys are glad handing everyone with a 50 when they walk around, I think in all seriousness, look, I despise the mafia. I do think with organized crime back in those days, there was an expectation, at least, that if you're in that life, there's a strong probability you're going to be killed or go to prison. And that did color a lot of their behavior, like in how they had to live. What's really scary about these guys to me is I think that they think that there will never be any repercussions for anything they do. And that they're close to getting it to a place where they're running everything, where there is this kind of tech autocracy that maybe isn't so outlandish to imagine happening, and that's really scary. But, but we can also take heart from, Italy of a few decades ago was really, 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 racked by violence, and the Cosa Nostra seemed just an implacable fact of life. And it was dismantled in large part. Now, there are other problems in Italy still, other mafias that are powerful in Italy still, but the Cosa Nostra is a shell of itself in Sicily. And as one of the main prosecutors on that said, the mafia has a beginning, it has a middle, it can have an end. So I try to turn to that when I feel really despairing about stuff like that.
Well, it underscores why we need to prosecute. I mean, we need to prosecute these Trump people. We need to. I mean, once God help us if we get power back, this is a result of impunity. And it's impunity, in my view, that started with the Iraq War, with letting those guys off the hook, with letting Wall Street off the hook. I mean, when you talk about there being not as much of a distinction as people would like to think between organized crime and just like regular capitalism, that's a prime example of it for me. It incentivizes criminal behavior from the top down.
I think it's why things like prosecuting insider trading or these relatively minor crimes are so important, because they are kind of speed bumps on worse behavior. And the fact that Donald Trump never had any of those is an outrage and is directly linked to what we have now. I mean, again, Al Capone, famously, they got him on tax evasion charges, right? It turned out you had to pay taxes on illegally earned income. Which is kind of funny, and that actually brings us to another important point, I think, which is taxation is a really important part of solving this dilemma. That these guys need to pay a lot more in taxes for a lot of democratic reasons, not even criminal ones,
Exactly. And I guess, could you shed light on like the dynamic of or the organized crime, kind of these informal economies that are created, and they were, the Irish mafia too. I mean, there was also Jewish mafias, like newer immigrant groups that came into the United States more at the start of the 20th century, were subjected to, racist immigration laws as well, and were discriminated against. And then you create these informal economies almost. Like, I mean, in many ways, it's hard not to view like Israel a little bit as an outgrowth of a little bit of a group that got empowered in many ways by the military-industrial complex here in the United States, and we built that up. But you also have the Italian mob and the Irish mob. That is the natural kind of, it seems like, outgrowth of gatekeeping capital and the economy for racist ends. That always is going to be the case. And you could see that in gang activity or whatever in the United States with other groups that are discriminated against.
Yeah, I mean, look, I essentially view, the signers of the framers of the Constitution as, the first mob summit, really. I mean, this is all the big shots from each area of the country coming together, like in the Godfather, where they're all assembled there. Later immigrant groups will scramble to get the best things that are available to them, right? Because they're locked out of that Boston Brahmin high-level control of things, right?
Yep.
So the Irish, obviously I'm O'Sullivan. This is where I come from. And my grandparents came relatively late in the 1950s, but a century before, they're coming to escape the famine. And what do they get? They get the urban political machines. They get basically the next best thing, right? They get the civil service of cities. And that brings immense amounts of power. And they are essentially gangsters, right? Jews increasingly emigrate to the U.S. after the assassination of the Tsar in like 1880 or 81. And they get some of the next best things. Obviously, anti-Semitism extremely strong. And then Italians, by the time they come in more towards the turn of the century, there's not as much left for Jews and Italians. And, you have cases of extortion within the Italian community that's called the Black Hand commonly. You have this criminality that is hard to penetrate, and it eventually metastasizes into this marriage of the Cosa Nostra and some of the other mafias from Italy and American business, right? I mean, this is explicitly what Lucky Luciano and what his mentors modeled themselves on. Guys like Andrew Carnegie and JP Morgan, you know, running it like a business. And that's how they built it.
I mean, bring up Lucky Luciano. We have an IM. Maddie Moron says the Meyer Lansky organized criminal syndicate was also instrumental in the early wars of Zionist conquest during the founding of Israel, which I had kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too. Yeah, Mickey Cohen, the mob boss in Los Angeles, also sent money to the Yishuv in Israel. So that, I mean, Israel today is interesting. A lot of definitely, I mean, that's the understatement of the year, but a lot of Russian language criminals with partial Jewish heritage have used the right of return to get an Israeli passport, sometimes live there. And so, it's a great, great way to move through these international circuits, with some latitude.
Well, really fascinating stuff, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I can't wait to check out more of your show, The Outfit, podcast about organized crime and how it explains America. Even more after our interview. I hope everybody checks it out, and we will put a link to it down below wherever people are listening to or watching this. Dan, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Oh,
thank you so much for having me. It was great fun.
And it's on YouTube too, right, Dan?
It is on YouTube as well, and anywhere podcasts are found, in fact.
Oh, very nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.